In 48 BCE, a young Egyptian queen had herself smuggled into a palace, wrapped up in a carpet. And when that carpet was unrolled, Cleopatra emerged in front of Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire. It's one of the most famous stories of the ancient world. And for over 2,000 years, history has remembered Cleopatra as a seductress, a beautiful woman who used men to keep a hold of her throne. But that version of Cleopatra doesn't actually answer something that's really important. How did a young woman from a collapsing dynasty manage to outmaneuver some of the most powerful men in the Roman Empire? The thing is, Cleopatra understood something about power that most leaders never do. And that's because Cleopatra's power didn't come from dominance. It came from understanding people. Cleopatra has gone down in history as one of the world's most famous femme fatales, a seductive, mysterious woman who lures powerful men to their demise. She's remembered for her beauty, her charm, and her ability to captivate anyone that walked into the room. But there's something important we have to remember when it comes to Cleopatra's reputation. Most of what we know about her comes from accounts written by ancient Romans. Rome, the empire whose leaders she humiliated publicly, whose armies would eventually go on to conquer all of Egypt. All of this to say, the people that were writing Cleopatra's story had every interest in making her look like a dangerous woman. But what if Cleopatra wasn't just seductive? Because when we take a closer look at the records, a clearer picture starts to emerge. What if she just understood something about power that the Romans themselves couldn't see? Hey guys, it's Got That, and welcome to my channel. This is my little corner of the internet where we talk about psychological patterns, historical stories, and archetypes that help women move through the world, and how you can use those insights to create a life that you truly love. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to subscribe and stick around for a while. I'd love to have you. So let's get to know the real Cleopatra. Cleopatra was born around 69 BCE into the Ptolemaic dynasty. It was a group of Greek nobles that had ruled Egypt from the time of Alexander the Great. But right off the bat, Cleopatra started moving through rulership in different ways than her ancestors had. While previous rulers had refused to learn the language of the people they governed, Cleopatra became the first member of her family line to learn the native Egyptian tongue. She would go on to master several other languages and received a well-rounded classical education in philosophy, rhetoric, and diplomacy. In other words, Cleopatra wasn't just born charismatic. She was well prepared to lead. And soon, those skills would come in handy. Because during Cleopatra's lifetime, Rome was rapidly expanding its empire across the entire Mediterranean, and Egypt was one of its most valuable targets. At the same time that Cleopatra was consolidating her power in Egypt, Rome was devolving into a civil war. And that civil war was going to bring Cleopatra right in front of the most powerful man in the Roman world. Two of Rome's most powerful leaders, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great, were locked in a battle for control of the Republic. When Pompey fled to Egypt seeking refuge, Cleopatra made a fateful decision. She ordered him executed. Her goals were simple: avoid getting Egypt involved in Rome's conflict, and maybe gain a little favor with Julius Caesar himself. The plan backfired horribly. Caesar was furious, and now Cleopatra stood before the wrath of the most powerful leader in Rome, without a military force strong enough to resist him. And that's when Cleopatra made the move that would change everything. A move historians are still talking about 2,000 years later. You see, instead of fighting Caesar, Cleopatra decided to meet him. She approached him directly, either strolling gracefully into his palace or rolled up in a carpet, if you prefer the more legendary account of the tale. Either way, she eventually made her audience with him and knocked him right off his feet. He was completely taken with her. Her wit, her intellect, her charm. Their political alliance eventually turned into a romantic one, giving Cleopatra even more influence over the Roman emperor. And once Cleopatra had Caesar's ear, and eventually his loyalty too, she was able to leverage that relationship to make some pretty strategic and favorable moves for Egypt. You see, Cleopatra understood that Egypt's military forces were no match for those of Rome. So instead of playing to Rome's strengths, she made the wise choice to play to hers. While the Roman Empire valued dominance, conquest, and military prowess, Cleopatra was able to disarm them by using the skills that she'd been cultivating for her whole life: charisma, wit, insight, diplomacy, and the very presence of a crown leader of Egypt. Roman officials were susceptible to her power because it was so different from their own. They underestimated Cleopatra's influence, and she was able to use that to her advantage. Cleopatra understood that one of the most powerful moves she could make wasn't playing the same game that the Romans were playing. It was to forge her own path forward, to write the rules for herself, and to step fully into her feminine power. Cleopatra didn't threaten Rome with armies. She threatened them with influence. She understood the importance of strategic alliance and relationship building throughout her entire reign. Even after Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra adapted quickly. She soon made alliances with Mark Antony, a powerful Roman general who she would eventually take as a lover to. Cleopatra didn't survive Rome and keep her kingdom safe by being sentimental. She did it by understanding where power was shifting and how to act accordingly. Even when the tide started turning against her, Cleopatra refused to give up on Rome's terms. Rather than waiting for the enemy to come and end her reign, Cleopatra made the choice to end her life on her own terms after Mark Antony's death. Even in defeat, Cleopatra refused to allow herself to become a prop for Roman victory. She decided to take the pen in her hand and be the author of her own story. And that decision reveals something really important about the psychology of power. Cleopatra's story is fascinating historically and insightful psychologically. Cleopatra wasn't powerful despite being a woman in the ancient world. She was powerful because she understood different versions of power that others of her time often overlooked or ignored completely. When thinking about Cleopatra's unique approach to power, two feminine archetypes immediately come to mind: the queen and the lover. If you're interested in learning more about the 7 feminine archetypes, I have a video on my channel that I'll be sure to link at the very end if you're interested in checking that out too. But for the purposes of this conversation, here's a quick overview. The queen archetype is characterized by independence, grace, and authority. She knows what she wants, and she'll make strategic moves to get there, no matter who's in her way. The lover archetype is about embodying presence, leaning into your natural sense of allure, charm, and magnetism. Cleopatra embodied both of these energies, I'd say primarily the queen and secondarily the lover, to yield meaningful power in the ancient world. As a queen, she was diplomatic, focused, and dedicated to building relationships that would prove beneficial to both herself and her kingdom. And yes, her lover energy certainly took her far. It's pretty widely accepted that her children were fathered by Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, respectively. But contemporary accounts suggest that something more was going on. These men weren't just giving their girlfriends special treatment. They respected her. They admired her intelligence. They valued her insight, and they treated her with more equality than many female rulers had experienced up until that point. While Roman leaders secured their power through dominance, military prowess, and brute force, Cleopatra leaned decisively into her feminine energy when it came to ruling her people. Cleopatra didn't just challenge Rome politically. She challenged their very understanding of what true power was. Independently, both the queen and the lover archetypes are incredibly effective. But combined strategically, they created a signature leadership style that would be remembered for millennia. Cleopatra used the authority, intellect, and decisiveness of the queen, combined with the magnetism, allure, and emotional intelligence of the lover, to create a power play that was truly intoxicating. She cultivated a system of undeniable influence that not only allowed her to survive during political turmoil, but to actively shape the outcomes of history. Cleopatra's reign has captivated the public since ancient history. And what makes Cleopatra so fascinating is that women today still combine these same archetypes to move through the world. In our modern hustle culture, women are often pressured to step into their masculine energy if they want to succeed. The dominant narrative sounds something like this: work harder, show up earlier, stay later, and just keep pushing through until you get what you want. But feminine energy can't really thrive in that mentality. Feminine energy requires emotional intelligence, perceptivity, intuition, and feminine power, especially when embodied by the queen and lover archetypes, is a quietly powerful way to cultivate influence in your own life. And that influence shouldn't be underestimated. For modern women, shifting from a state of constant action to one of receptive collaboration, social magnetism, and informed emotional intelligence can be the key to tapping into your own source of power too. Our modern culture often treats success like an arm wrestling match. Whoever pushes the hardest wins. But Cleopatra made the wise choice to play a different game altogether. She treated power like chess. She studied the board. She understood the players. She moved strategically, because sometimes the most powerful player on the board isn't the one who's pushing the hardest. It's the one that knows exactly when to make a move. Cleopatra's story isn't just one about the last queen of Egypt. It's about a woman who understood power and used it in ways that the world wasn't quite ready for yet. Cleopatra reminds us that power doesn't always look like dominance. Sometimes it looks like presence, strategy, influence, and the confidence to move through the world on your own terms. Cleopatra understood how to yield her queen and lover energies strategically, but not every woman in history who's tried this powerful combination has been met with the same level of success. In my next video, we're going to talk about Anne Boleyn and how these very same archetypes can yield drastically different results. If you're still here, thank you. Truly, I loved getting to geek out with you today. Before you go, I'd love to know, do you think Cleopatra's power came from strategy, influence, or charisma? Also, if there are any other historical or pop culture figures you'd like to see me do an archetype analysis on, please let me know that down below as well. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. If you want a really broad overview of all 7 of the classical feminine archetypes, you can check out the video that's on screen now. So I'll catch you over there, or I'll just see you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.